I still remember the day the doorbell rang. Sharp, impatient, almost angry. It was raining outside. The kind of rain that makes the world look blurry, like it's weeping with you. When I opened the door, there he was, Ethan, my son-in-law, soaked to the bone, his eyes wild, desperate. He had that look I used to recognize on his face whenever he knew he'd gone too far. The kind of guilt that doesn't just sit in your chest but claws its way up your throat. "Please, Margaret," he said, voice trembling. "Please, I just need to talk to her, to Claire. I need to make things right." I didn't answer immediately. My hand tightened on the doorknob because I knew it was already too late for that. His apology, his regret, his tears, they were all years too late. Claire, my daughter, had been gone 3 months by then. The world believed she'd died peacefully after childbirth complications. Only I knew the truth. But looking at him, standing there in the rain, clutching a small stuffed bunny like it was a sacred relic, I saw a man unraveling. Not because he loved her. No, Ethan was never capable of the kind of love Claire deserved, but because he'd lost control of the narrative he built around himself. I stepped aside slowly, allowing him in. His wet shoes stained the carpet. The scent of whiskey and rain followed him like a ghost. "Why now?" I asked quietly, watching him collapse into the armchair, the same one Claire used to sit in reading her letters from him back when he still pretended to care. He buried his face in his hands. Because I didn't know, Margaret. I swear, I didn't know." "Didn't know what, Ethan?" He looked up at me then, eyes red, voice breaking. "That the baby wasn't mine." The words hung between us like a thunderclap. I didn't flinch, not because it wasn't shocking, but because I had heard the same words before, from someone else, from Claire. I remembered that night vividly, the night she came home, shaking, her eyes empty. She sat right there, at this very table, and whispered to me, "Mom, I can't do this anymore. He's not who I thought he was." I asked her what she meant. She didn't answer, not at first. She just held her belly, tears streaming down her face, and said, "I made a mistake, Mom. The baby isn't Ethan's." That was the last real conversation we ever had. Ethan's voice pulled me back to the present. "I thought she cheated," he said bitterly. "I thought she betrayed me, so I hurt her, Margaret. I said things no man should ever say to a woman he loves. I left her when she needed me most. I thought I was punishing her, but—" He choked on his words. I watched him, expressionless. "But when she died," he continued, "I couldn't stop thinking about it, about how nothing made sense, about how she kept protecting someone in her last messages. And then I saw the DNA report." He pulled a folded paper from his coat pocket, crumpled and soaked through. "It's here," he said, voice trembling. "The truth." I took it gently, unfolded it, and there it was, the document I had burned months ago, now reborn in his shaking hands. But this one was different. Someone had rewritten the story. Ethan had found out that the child's DNA didn't match his, but also didn't match anyone in his family. The test had been redone, the truth rewritten. And yet, he still didn't understand what that truth really meant. "Margaret," he whispered, "who was it? Who was the father?" I looked at him long and hard, feeling my pulse slow, my heart harden, because that question, the one that haunted him, was the same one that haunted me, but I had learned to stop asking. "Does it matter now?" I said quietly. He shook his head violently. "Of course it matters! Claire died thinking I hated her. If I'd known the truth—" "You'd have done exactly what you did," I interrupted coldly. You'd have left her. You'd have broken her anyway. Because, Ethan, you never loved her for who she was. You loved her for how she made you look. He stood up then, angry, defensive, his grief turning to rage. You don't know anything. I tried to fix things. You destroyed her, I said sharply, my voice cutting through his denial. And now you're here, looking for redemption in the ruins you made. For a long time, he just stood there, silent, shaking, his eyes flicking toward the hallway where the nursery door was half open. You kept the room, he asked softly. Yes, I said. It's not for her. It's for the child. He froze. The child? I nodded slowly. You thought the baby died, didn't you? He looked at me in disbelief, his lips parting. You mean... A faint cry echoed from the hallway, soft but unmistakable. Ethan's face drained of color. He stumbled forward, staring at me like he'd seen a ghost. You lied, he whispered. You told everyone the baby died with her. I had to, I said calmly. It was the only way to keep her safe. Safe? From who? I met his eyes. From you. He staggered back, shaking his head violently. No, I'd never. I wouldn't hurt a child. Wouldn't you? I said, my voice low and steady. You hurt Claire, didn't you? With your words, your silence, your pride. You think children don't feel that kind of cruelty? You think love built on ownership doesn't destroy? Tears filled his eyes. He reached out a trembling hand toward the nursery. I just want to see her, Margaret. Please, I just want to see the baby. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every secret I'd kept. Then I said quietly, You can't, Ethan. Not today. Why not? He whispered. Because she's not yours. He stared at me, frozen. I know that now, but... No, I said, cutting him off. You don't understand. She's not yours in any sense. Not by blood, not by bond. And if you knew who her father really was... I stopped, my voice trembling for the first time. His eyes searched mine, desperate for an answer, one he wasn't ready to hear. The truth had been buried for too long, wrapped in grief and guilt. But now, standing face to face with the man who'd broken my daughter, I realized that maybe it was time he learned everything. Because the real father of that child wasn't a stranger at all. Ethan's mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked at me, confusion giving way to fear, a kind of creeping dread that told me he already suspected what I was about to say. He just didn't want it to be true. I moved past him toward the window, pushing the curtain aside. The rain had slowed, the streetlights shimmering in the puddles like small, trembling stars. When Claire came home that last night, she wasn't herself. She was terrified, shaking. She said she needed to leave you, but she couldn't tell me why. She just said, "He'll ruin everything if I talk." Ethan took a shaky step forward. I don't understand. Are you saying someone else? Yes, I whispered. Someone else was controlling her life. Someone who made her feel trapped even when you weren't around. Someone who made her believe that silence was safer than the truth. He frowned, frustration flashing in his eyes. Margaret, you're talking in riddles. Just tell me who he was. I turned slowly, meeting his gaze. Do you remember that night you came home drunk? The night you accused Claire of being unfaithful because she wouldn't answer her phone? His jaw tightened. Yes, I remember. She spent that night here. She came to me, bruised, crying, terrified. She said she couldn't go back to that house. I asked who hurt her. She wouldn't tell me. All she said is that it wasn't you. He blinked. Not me? Then Who? She said it was someone who claimed to be helping you. Someone who told her he'd handled the finances while you were away for work. Someone who started calling her when you didn't answer, checking on her, offering help. He froze. My brother. I nodded once, watching the color drain from his face. Daniel. He stumbled backward, his breath catching in his throat. No, that can't be. He barely even spoke to her. Barely to you, I corrected. To her, he was everything you weren't. Patient, kind, attentive. But it wasn't love, Ethan. It was manipulation. He saw her vulnerability and took advantage of it. And when she found out she was pregnant, she tried to run. She didn't even want to tell me who the father was at first. She just wanted out. Ethan sank into the chair again, burying his face in his hands. His body trembled, his voice breaking apart. My own brother, he whispered. He did this to her. And I called her a liar. I looked down, my heart tightening. You destroyed her hope, Ethan. You believed every word Daniel fed you. He told you she was cheating, didn't he? Ethan nodded weakly. He showed me messages. He said she was seeing someone behind my back. They were his messages, I said bitterly. He twisted them. He made you his weapon. Ethan's hand slid from his face, his eyes hollow. So the baby is his. I didn't answer at first. The silence between us stretched, heavy, suffocating. The clock on the wall ticked like a heartbeat that wouldn't stop no matter how much you wanted it to. When I finally spoke, my voice was cold, almost detached. Yes, the baby is Daniel's. Ethan's head dropped, his shoulders shaking with a sound that wasn't quite crying. It was something deeper, something rawer, like a man realizing he had unknowingly betrayed everything that once mattered to him. He stood suddenly, pacing the floor, gripping his hair. I'll kill him, he hissed. I swear to God, I'll kill him for what he did. Don't, I said sharply. Violence already destroyed enough of this family. You think Claire would want that? He stopped, staring at me. What am I supposed to do then? Live knowing my brother fathered my wife's child? She wasn't your wife anymore when he broke her, I said, my tone quiet but firm. You left her long before she ever left you, Ethan. Not maybe physically, but in every way that mattered. He sank down again, defeated. His voice trembled when he spoke. Why didn't you tell me before? Why hide it? Because Claire begged me to, I whispered. She said she didn't want revenge. She just wanted peace. She wanted her baby to grow up without hate. He looked up, eyes red, glassy. Then why are you telling me now? Because you showed up. Because you brought your guilt to my doorstep, and I need you to understand what your silence cost. The baby's faint cry echoed again from down the hall, soft, fragile like the echo of a soul that hadn't seen the world's cruelty. Ethan looked toward the sound, tears streaming down his cheeks. Does she know? Does she know? She's too young, but she'll know one day, and when she does, I'll tell her the truth. Not the kind that poisons, but the kind that sets her free. He swallowed hard. What about me? What happens to me now? I studied him for a long moment. That's up to you. You can live in the wreckage of what you destroyed, or you can finally become the man you pretended to be. But understand this, Ethan. Forgiveness isn't something you earn with apologies. It's something you live by. He nodded faintly, staring at the floor. Can I see her just once? The question lingered in the air. I hesitated, torn between the part of me that still believed in redemption and the part that remembered the bruises on her arms, the fear in her eyes, the way she whispered, "Don't let him near her, Mom." Finally, I said, "Not today. Maybe one day, when you've proven you're not like him." He nodded, silently as if he already knew I wouldn't change my mind. As he stood, I noticed something in his expression, Not anger, not even grief, but a hollow sort of understanding. The kind that comes only when a man sees the truth too clearly to run from it. He turned toward the door, his hand hovering on the knob. "Margaret," he said softly, "I don't expect forgiveness, but thank you for saving her." I didn't answer. He opened the door and the cold night air rushed in, carrying the scent of rain and regret. When the door closed behind him, I sank into the armchair, trembling. The quiet felt heavier than before. From the hallway, I heard the baby coo softly, a sound so pure it almost broke me. I walked toward her room, my footsteps slow, my heart aching with the weight of everything left unsaid. I lifted her gently from the crib, her tiny fingers curling around my own. Her eyes, bright and innocent, blinked up at me. Eyes that carried no trace of her father's cruelty, nor her mother's pain. Only light. And as I held her close, whispering Claire's name like a prayer, I realized something. The truth might destroy men like Ethan and Daniel, but it could also rebuild something far stronger in the next generation. Something untouched by lies. Something worth protecting, no matter the cost. The baby stirred in my arms, her tiny lips parting in a soft sigh, her warmth seeping through the thin blanket. I rocked her gently, the way Claire used to rock her doll when she was a child, humming that same lullaby she'd made up at 10 years old, the one she said she'd sing to her daughter someday. I never thought I'd be the one keeping that promise for her. Outside, the storm had passed, but the world still smelled of rain. Fresh, clean, deceptive. It always struck me how easily nature forgave itself, how the earth could be torn apart one moment and bloom again the next. Humans weren't built like that. We carried our storms inside us. I moved to the crib and laid the baby down, brushing a stray curl from her forehead. She had Daniel's eyes, that piercing blue, haunting in its familiarity. But there was something softer, too, something that reminded me of Claire. Maybe the soul remembers kindness even when born from cruelty. I stood there for a while, just listening to her breathing before turning off the lamp. The house was quiet again, but my thoughts weren't. They were alive, restless, whispering questions that refused to die. Ethan knew the truth now, and once a secret leaves your lips, it stops belonging to you. I'd carried it alone for too long, telling myself it was to protect Claire's child, but maybe part of me had been hiding too, hiding from the guilt of not seeing what was happening under my own roof. I walked into the kitchen, poured myself a glass of water, and leaned against the counter. The faint ticking of the clock filled the silence. Steady, cruelly normal. The sound of a life that had to keep going, no matter how much had been lost. I thought about Daniel, about how he'd always been the golden boy, the kind who could talk his way out of anything, who made people believe in him even when he was hollow inside. He'd been charming, confident, the kind of man who made mothers proud and daughters cautious. But with Claire, he'd found someone too gentle to fight back. I remember the first time she mentioned him. She'd laughed softly, said, "Ethan's brother is so kind, Mom. He listens to me when Ethan's busy." I should have seen it then. The way her eyes darted away, how she tried to make it sound casual. But I wanted to believe in good intentions. I thought kindness couldn't hide rot. When she found out she was pregnant, she told me she'd take the truth to her grave. And she did. The official story was that Ethan had been the father, the grieving husband, the man broken by loss. The town pitied him. They whispered about tragedy, not betrayal. Daniel disappeared a few weeks after the funeral. No calls, no visits. Just gone, like a stain washed away in silence. But I never stopped wondering if he knew. If he knew the baby had lived. A soft knock at the door pulled me from my thoughts. My stomach tightened. For a moment, I thought Ethan had come back. But when I opened the door, a shadow stood there, under the porch light. Tall, composed, familiar. Daniel. He looked older, thinner. The arrogance in his posture replaced by something colder, calculation. His eyes met mine, and I saw no remorse there, only curiosity. "Evening, Margaret," he said quietly, his voice smooth as ever. "I heard Ethan paid you a visit." I gripped the doorframe. "You shouldn't be here." He smiled faintly. I could say the same, but I had to see for myself. "See what?" I asked, my voice trembling. "The child," he said simply. "My child." The words struck me like ice. He said it so casually, as if claiming a possession, not a life. "You have no right," I said sharply. "I have every right," he replied, stepping closer, his expression tightening. "You think you can keep her hidden forever? I know she's alive, Margaret. Do you really think I didn't check?" I felt my heart pound, fear twisting in my chest. "You stay away from her, from this house." Daniel tilted his head, his voice soft but cutting. "You think you can protect her better than her own father? You couldn't even protect Claire." I froze, the words slicing through me. He smirked, seeing the hurt flash across my face. "You don't pretend you didn't know what was happening. You knew. You always knew. But you liked pretending your family was perfect." My hand shook as I reached for the door, but he pressed his palm against it, holding it open just enough to keep the confrontation alive. "I didn't come here to fight," he said coolly. "I just want to see her, one time. Then I'll leave." I looked at him, the man who had destroyed my daughter's spirit, and I saw nothing of the boy I'd once welcomed into my home. His eyes were empty of love, of conscience. Only entitlement remained. "No," I said quietly, stepping between him and the threshold. "You forfeited that right the moment you touched her without her consent. You don't get to rewrite that." He stared at me for a long moment, the muscles in his jaw tightening. Then he said, "If you don't let me see her, I'll make sure everyone knows the truth. About you, about Ethan, about Claire. You really want the world to find out how deep this family's rot goes?" My breath caught. He was threatening me, using the same manipulation that had trapped Claire. "You do whatever you need to. But if you come near that child, Daniel, I will destroy you." His smile faded. For the first time, I saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. He wasn't used to being defied. He straightened, brushing the rain from his coat. He said, "You can't keep her from me forever. I'm her blood. Blood isn't love, and it's not what makes a father." He looked at me one last time, his gaze unreadable, and then turned away, disappearing into the night. "I saw his car," Ethan said, voice trembling. "He came to me after he left your house. He told me everything." The words hit like a knife. "What did he tell you?" "That you're lying," Ethan said. "That Claire wasn't scared of him, that you made her afraid, that you turned her against me and him because you couldn't stand to lose control." I stared at him in disbelief. "You believe that?" He looked at me, really looked, but I saw the doubt flickering in his eyes, the confusion twisting him in knots. He wanted to believe me, but Daniel's poison had already found a way in. "Ethan," I said, forcing calm into my voice, "you saw what your brother did to your marriage. He twisted everything, used your anger to break her spirit. You know that." He rubbed his temples, shaking his head. "I don't know what to believe anymore. But if what you're saying is true, then why didn't Claire tell anyone? Why didn't she go to the police? Because she was terrified, I said sharply. He told her that no one would believe her, that you'd take his side, and he was right, wasn't he? He flinched. Don't say that. Then tell me I'm wrong, I said, stepping closer. Tell me that when she begged you to listen, you didn't call her a liar? His eyes glistened. I made mistakes. I didn't know. You didn't want to know, I whispered. He dropped his gaze. The silence between us stretched like an open wound. Finally, he said, Daniel says he wants to see the baby. He's not going to, I said firmly. He says if you don't let him, he'll go public. He'll tell everyone about Claire, about the lies. He can tell whoever he wants, I said coldly. The truth doesn't scare me anymore. His shoulders slumped. It should, Margaret. He's dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. Oh, I know. That's why I'm not letting him near her. He looked toward the hallway, where a faint nightlight glowed from the nursery. His expression softened, the first real hint of tenderness I'd seen from him since that horrible night months ago. Can I just look at her? From the door? I hesitated. Every instinct screamed no. But part of me, the part that still remembered the man who once made my daughter laugh, couldn't quite refuse. From the door, I said, finally. He nodded, quietly, and walked down the hall. I followed his movements, ready for anything. When he stopped at the doorway, his breath hitched. The baby slept soundly, the moonlight falling across her tiny face. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. She looks like her, like Claire. She does, I said softly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he turned to me, voice low, unsteady. Daniel says he wants to see the baby. He's not going to, I said firmly. He says if you don't let him, he'll go public. He'll tell everyone about Claire, about the lies. He can tell whoever he wants, I said coldly. The truth doesn't scare me anymore. His shoulders slumped. It should, Margaret. He's dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. Oh, I know. That's why I'm not letting him near her. He looked toward the hallway, where a faint nightlight glowed from the nursery. His expression softened, the first real hint of tenderness I'd seen from him since that horrible night months ago. Can I just look at her? From the door. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed no, but part of me, the part that still remembered the man who once made my daughter laugh, couldn't quite refuse. From the door, I said, finally. He nodded, quietly, and walked down the hall. I followed his movements, ready for anything. When he stopped at the doorway, his breath hitched. The baby slept soundly, the moonlight falling across her tiny face. Ethan's eyes filled with tears. She looks like her, like Claire. She does, I said softly. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he turned to me, voice low, unsteady. Daniel says he wants to see the baby. He's not going to, I said firmly. He says if you don't let him, he'll go public. He'll tell everyone about Claire, about the lies. He can tell whoever he wants, I said coldly. The truth doesn't scare me anymore. His shoulders slumped. It should, Margaret. He's dangerous. You don't know what he's capable of. Oh, I know. That's why I'm not letting him near her. He looked toward the hallway, where a faint nightlight glowed from the nursery. His expression softened, the first real hint of tenderness I'd seen from him since that horrible night months ago. My breath caught. The handprint was small but unmistakably adult, smudged against the glass from the outside. I moved closer, my pulse thudding in my throat. The baby still slept, undisturbed, her chest rising and falling in that soft rhythm that only innocence knows. But someone had been here, watching, close enough to touch the window. I backed away slowly, forcing myself to think clearly. Daniel. It had to be him. The way the print was placed right above the crib's line of sight told me exactly what I didn't want to know. He'd been looking in. Not for long, but long enough to leave a mark. I pulled the curtains shut and locked the window latch, even though I already knew it wouldn't stop him if he wanted in. Daniel never accepted boundaries. He only saw them as dares. My hands were trembling as I reached for the baby monitor. The tiny green light blinked steadily, the soft hiss of background noise filling the quiet. I turned up the volume until I could hear every breath. The weight of what I'd done, of keeping her hidden all this time, pressed harder on my chest. I'd always believed I was strong enough to protect her. Now, looking at that pale smudge on the glass, I wasn't sure anymore. I went to the living room, double-checked every lock again, even slid a chair under the front door handle like something out of a bad dream. The night felt endless. I sat there with the baby monitor on the table beside me, listening, waiting. At some point, exhaustion must have caught me because the next sound I registered wasn't from the house. It was the faint crack of tires on gravel outside. Headlights swept across the front wall. I rose from the chair instantly, heart hammering. It was Ethan's car, again. I ran to the door and yanked it open before he could knock. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" He looked startled, his face drawn tight. Just checking if you're okay. Daniel called me." "Daniel called you?" I repeated, disbelief turning into dread. He nodded slowly. "He said you threatened him, that you're keeping something dangerous here." He sounded frightened. I laughed, sharp and bitter. "He's playing you again, Ethan. Don't you see? He's trying to make me look unstable." His eyes flicked over my shoulder, toward the hallway. "You seem shaken." "I am, because your brother was here earlier. He left a handprint on the nursery window." His brow furrowed. "Are you sure? It could have been anyone." "It was him. He was looking in, my voice cracking." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "You have to calm down, Margaret. This isn't helping." I stepped closer, glaring at him. "You think I'm imagining it? You think I don't know what I saw?" "I didn't say that," he said quietly, but his tone carried that same patronizing patience I'd always hated in him. The way he'd used it with Claire when she was crying, convincing her that her feelings were just hysteria. I felt anger rise in my throat like fire. "You both broke her, you and your brother, and now you want to gaslight me the same way." His expression hardened. "That's not fair. I loved her." "Loved her?" I snapped. "You loved the idea of her, the version that smiled and agreed with everything you said. The moment she showed fear or doubt, you called her weak." He flinched, but didn't deny it. Instead, he said, "If you really think Daniel's dangerous, we should go to the police, together." I wanted to trust that suggestion, but something about his tone sounded rehearsed, like he already knew the outcome. "You mean go to the police and tell them what, Ethan? That a dead woman's brother-in-law might be stalking her baby? There's no record, no proof. They'll say I'm paranoid." He hesitated, then nodded slowly as though that had been the point all along. "Maybe you are, but at least you'll have done the right thing." I stared at him. His calmness was wrong, too steady. And suddenly a thought crept into my mind. Quiet, poisonous, terrifying. "What did he offer you?" I asked softly. "What?" "Daniel," I said. "He offered you something, didn't he? Money? A deal?" He's not the type to rely on persuasion alone. His silence was answer enough. I took a step back, shaking my head. "You're working with him." "It's not what you think," he said quickly. "He just wants a chance to see her. He said if we cooperate, no one has to get hurt."
No one has to get hurt? I repeated, horror dawning. Do you hear yourself?
He looked torn, almost pleading. Margaret, please, you don't understand what he's capable of. If we don't give him what he wants, he'll ruin everything. He has evidence, pictures, messages. He'll twist it all to make it look like you kidnapped that baby. I felt the world tilt beneath me. He already ruined everything, I said quietly. Claire's gone because of him, and now you're helping him finish what he started. His face tightened. I'm trying to keep the peace. There's no peace with a man like him. There's only silence, and that's what killed my daughter. The baby monitor crackled suddenly, a faint noise from the nursery. We both froze. A soft creak, then a thud. Ethan's head snapped toward the sound. What was that? My blood went cold. I ran for the hallway, heart pounding, the monitor still hissing faintly in my hand. The nursery door was half open. The nightlights still flickered softly. The crib was empty. I froze in the doorway, a scream rising in my throat but choking halfway. No! 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 I whispered. The window was open, curtains flittering. The latch I'd locked was snapped clean. Ethan stepped in behind me, his voice hoarse. She's gone. I spun toward him, grabbing his coat, my voice shaking with fury. You knew this would happen. He looked genuinely terrified now, his face pale as ash. I swear, I didn't. He said he would wait until tomorrow. Tomorrow? You told him where she was. Ethan backed away, his hands trembling. Margaret, listen to me. We can fix this. He won't hurt her. He just wants... What? Control? Power? Another chance to destroy someone. The night outside was dead silent, but somewhere far off, I thought I heard a car engine start. I ran to the window, peering into the darkness, but there was nothing but the faint glow of streetlights reflecting on wet pavement. The car I'd heard was gone before I could even see its taillights. Behind me, Ethan whispered, He took her, didn't he? My body felt like stone. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. The room that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a tomb. I turned slowly to face him. If he hurts her, Ethan, I'll make sure you both pay for it. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. The guilt was already written across his face. I grabbed my coat, my phone, my keys, my pulse roaring in my ears. There was no time for thought, no room for fear. Only one truth burned in my mind as I stepped out into the cold, wet night. I was going to find my granddaughter, no matter what it cost me. I was going to find my granddaughter, no matter what it cost me. I ran out into the night, the cold air cutting through my thin coat like a blade. The pavement was slick underfoot, reflecting the street lamps and trembling ribbons. My hands fumbled with my phone. My thumb hit calls, then stopped. The police would take time, too much time. Daniel had already proven he knew how to bend minutes into silence. I needed something faster than bureaucracy. I needed instincts and stubbornness, and the kind of luck that had eluded Claire in her last hours. Ethan stumbled out behind me, breathless, grabbing at my sleeve. Margaret, wait, he panted. His eyes were wild, half hope, half dread. We should call the police. We should tell them everything now. No, I snapped, harsher than I meant. Daniel already knows how the system listens. He'll vanish before they even lift a finger. We need to move. He hesitated, then nodded. He wasn't the kind to disobey. He was the kind to follow when there was nowhere left to lead. We split the neighborhood in two, Ethan toward the main road where cars could be seen fleeing if someone tried to leave in haste, and I toward the alleys and back streets where a man trying to be invisible might think to hide. Every shadow looked like a plan, every parked car a threat. I stopped at the corner where the lamplight met the darkness, trying to pick out tire tracks, any recent disturbance in the gravel. My palms were sweaty, my heart a jackhammer against bone. Memories flooded over me. Claire's laugh, the sound of her knitting needles, the way she'd traced the rim of a teacup like it was a world she couldn't bear to break. I used that image like an amulet against panic and ran. An old woman on a porch watched me go with a worried frown. You lost something, dear? She called.
My granddaughter, I shouted back, voice cracking. Have you seen a car? Black sedan, maybe silver trim, leaving fast?
She shook her head, but her eyes followed me until I rounded the next block. Even strangers in this neighborhood knew the old stories about the Benson house, the way grief had stained it years ago. Now the stain had spread like oil across the street. I took the alley behind the laundromat, the smell of detergent and damp cotton lingering. A man in a hoodie tucked something into the trunk of his car. He glanced up, startled, then drove off. I checked the license plate out of reflex, thumbed it into my memory. It wasn't Daniel's car, it wasn't Ethan's, but it was something. Anything was better than nothing. Near the supermarket, a security camera hung crooked on a pole. If Daniel was clever, he'd worn gloves. If he was sloppy, maybe he'd left fingerprints on the latch. I peered up and felt the pull of hope like the tide. The camera's red eye blinked, lazy and indifferent. I made a mental note to come back for the footage. If the city wouldn't hand it over, maybe a friend at the station would. My phone buzzed, Ethan's name flashing. I answered on the run. "Where are you?" I hissed. "By the roundabout," he said, voice hollow. "I saw tire marks. I thought maybe he left that way." "Hold there," I said. "Don't let anyone leave." "I can't stop him," he whispered. "Margaret, I'm so—" The apology died. I heard him gulp air. "I'm going to find my car keys." "Good," I said. "Drive. Follow any car that looks like it might be leaving fast. Call me if you see headlights." The call cut off. I crossed the last street and slowed, breath fogging in the cold air. Near the community park, the grass had been churned up. Fresh mud, the pattern of a narrow set of tire tracks leading away toward the river road. Someone had taken the shortcut where the asphalt disappeared. The route a thin slice between houses that seemed to be meant for escape. Daniel had driven that way earlier in life. He'd always loved shortcuts because he liked the feeling of getting where he wanted before anyone knew he'd been coming. I followed the tracks. They led toward the river where willow branches drooped like sad, green fingers. The moon was swallowing itself behind a cloud, and my footsteps crunched in the mud. The tracks ended at the small boat ramp, a sloping concrete wedge into black water. There were more prints, shoes, boot heels leading down to the edge, and a smear of fabric on the concrete caught my eye. A tear from a baby blanket? No, just a scrap. But its fibers clung to mud, and mud remembers. My breath fogged white. I crouched and picked up a single small white thread from the scrap, something that could have come from a baby's blanket. My hands shook. I should have called someone then, someone official, but I needed to know first. I whispered Claire's name like a litany and took another step. Beyond the ramp, the river moved slow and indifferent. A boat bobbed a little upstream, its motor off, shadow ghosting on the water. Someone had attempted to disappear into the night via the river before. Men who believed they left no tracks learned to use water like a cloak. A shout cracked across the dark, a woman's voice, thin and far. I turned, heart racing, and it sounded again, this time closer. A strain of infant cry threaded through the words. I stumbled toward it, boots sinking into mud. There, half hidden behind a line of reeds, a small figure huddled on the ground, a child in arms, a man standing over them with his back to me. He was too broad to be Daniel, too cautious, slow, like someone who wasn't used to doing dirty work, but had been forced into it. "Stop!" I screamed, surprising myself with the command. The man whirled, and for one heart-stopping second, I thought it was Daniel. Then his face turned, and I saw a stranger, cheeks gaunt, eyes desperate. The infant's head was tucked against a shoulder, a tuft of dark hair visible. The man raised his hands. "I don't want trouble," he said, voice shaking. "Please, I was paid." "By who?" I demanded, stepping closer until the reeds brushed my knees. "He said he'd give me cash," he said. "Don't get close to the baby and don't say a word. I was supposed to drop her off at the next bridge and leave." My hands went numb. "Who told you this? Who paid you? The man's eyes darted nervously. A man, middle-aged, tall. He said he'd meet me at the station. He said we'd be in and out. He trailed off, jaw working. Ethan's voice broke through the reeds behind me, sharp as a blade. Margaret, are you okay? I turned. He was there, shining a flashlight, his silhouette huge, wild. A man remade by terror and resolve. He looked at the baby, then at me, then at the stranger cradling the child. In his face, something settled, a terrible, aching clarity. You, he spat, pointing. You're working for him. He told me I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. Leave her, I said, voice like stone. Give me the baby. He hesitated as if the money was physically embedded under his skin. Then, with hands that trembled as much as mine, he handed the infant to me. She smelled faintly of river air and something floral. Claire's shampoo, maybe, or Daniel's cologne. An echo of lives that had touched her.
I held her close, pressing her small face to my neck, and the world narrowed to the beat of her heart. Around us, night spun like a wheel. Daniel's car might still be minutes away. He might have accomplices. He might never be found. But there, clenched in my arms, was the living proof of what Claire had been and what she had loved. She was warm. She was here. Ethan sank to his knees in the mud, coughing like someone who'd been punched. He looked at the man, then at me, then at the baby, and something raw and terrible uncoiled in his face. We weren't safe yet. The wind picked up and carried a faint engine sound from upstream, then another, like predators returning to a feast they had thought won. The reeds whispered, footsteps, many, trod toward the ramp. I tightened my grip on the child and looked at Ethan. Run, I said. Find help. Get the car. Go now. He tried to argue, tried to say he would stay, that he would protect us, but the look I gave him was iron. He scrambled to his feet and vanished into the darkness, the sound of his running swallowed by the river's breath. I folded my coat around the baby and stood there, heart thudding, listening to the footsteps grow closer. The stranger at my side backed away, guilt and fear painting his features. He wanted to go. He wanted to forget he had ever been part of this. You go, I told him. Leave. Tell them what happened. Tell them everything. He turned, stumbling, and vanished between the willows like a ghost. The night closed in, the engine noise edged nearer, and I counted my breaths. In, out, steady. I had the child, for now that meant everything. Footsteps hit the concrete at the top of the ramp, heavy, certain. A voice called out, low and unnervingly familiar. Margaret? Margaret. The sound of my name came from the dark like a wound reopening. The voice was smooth, deliberate, each syllable dragged out just enough to make my heart seize. I didn't need to see his face. I knew that voice better than I wanted to. Daniel. He emerged from the shadows near the car path, the beam of a flashlight glinting off his wristwatch, his other hand tucked into his coat pocket like he was simply taking a midnight stroll. He looked infuriatingly composed, a man who'd already written the ending to this story and was only here to watch it play out. You're making this harder than it needs to be, he said softly, almost pitying. Give her to me, Margaret. She's not safe with you. I clutched the baby tighter. Safe? My voice cracked with fury. You broke my daughter's mind. You turned her into someone afraid to sleep, afraid to breathe. You call that safe? He sighed, stepping closer, the gravel crunching under his polished shoes. Claire was sick. You know that. I tried to help her, but she wouldn't listen. She wouldn't listen, I repeated bitterly. You mean she wouldn't obey? His eyes flickered, the first sign that my words hit somewhere deep. You don't understand the damage she could have done. She lied, Margaret, about everything. About the baby, about me. You're still lying, I whispered. His voice hardened. I have proof. You think I came here without it? You think the police won't listen when I show them what you've done? You've been keeping that child hidden for months. No one even knows if she's really Claire's. She's mine now, and I'll burn the world before I let you touch her. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. The river hissed softly against the ramp, the reeds bending under the cold wind. The baby stirred against my chest, letting out a small whimper that seemed to pierce the silence like glass. Daniel's eyes softened at the sound. She deserves a future, he murmured, and she won't have one with you. You're not well, Margaret. You're still living in ghosts. The way he said it, calm, clinical, confident, reminded me of how he'd gaslighted Claire, how he'd looked at her tears and called them delusions. I could almost hear her voice in my head again, whispering the same words she'd said the night before she died. He makes me doubt myself, Mom, even my own memories. I shifted the baby in my arms, stepping back toward the reeds. Don't come closer, Daniel. He tilted his head, amused. Or what? You'll call for help? You'll shoot me? My hand, hidden under my coat, brushed against the cold metal of the small revolver I'd kept since my husband's death. I hadn't fired it in years, but tonight, it didn't feel like a relic. It felt like resolute. I don't need to shoot you, I said. I just need to make sure the world sees you for what you are. He smiled faintly, and what's that? A coward who preys on women weaker than him. But here's your mistake, Daniel. You thought I was weak, too. He opened his mouth to reply, but the sudden crunch of tires cut him off. Headlights flared through the trees, Daniel's face twisted, confusion flashing for the first time. A car came roaring down the path, the same black sedan that had earlier fled. Ethan was behind the wheel. The engine screamed as the car skidded to a stop halfway down the slope. Ethan leapt out, the driver's door swinging wide. Get in, he yelled, now.
Daniel moved fast, pulling something metallic from his coat pocket. A knife, gleaming under the light. I turned, clutching the baby, and sprinted for the car. Mud splattered up my legs. The baby began to cry, wailing at the sudden rush of chaos. I reached the passenger door as Daniel shouted behind me, "You can't run from the truth, Margaret!" I yanked the door open and shoved the baby into the back seat, wrapping her in a blanket as Ethan threw himself behind the wheel. The moment my seatbelt clicked, the tires spun and the car lurched forward, fishtailing before catching traction. Daniel's figure grew smaller in the rearview mirror, his flashlight beam waving wildly as he shouted something I couldn't hear over the roar of the river and the wind. Ethan drove in silence for a long time. The road snaked upward into the hills, the lights of the town shrinking behind us. The baby's cries softened into hiccuping breaths, and I reached back to stroke her cheek, whispering, "It's okay, sweetheart. It's over. It's over now." But I knew it wasn't. Ethan's hands gripped the steering wheel too tightly. His jaw was set, his eyes hollow. I could see the guilt seeping through him like cracks in glass. "Where are we going?" I asked. He hesitated. "Somewhere safe." "That's not an answer." He didn't look at me. "I know a place. An old cabin up near Lake Morin. No one goes there anymore." I studied him. "You think Daniel doesn't know every place you've ever set foot in? He'll find us again, Ethan. He always does." "I won't let him," he said quietly, but there was no conviction behind it. I looked out the window, the darkness pressing close. My mind was racing, not with fear, but with something sharper. Daniel's words echoed in my head. "You've been keeping that child hidden for months. No one even knows if she's really Claire's." No one even knows. That phrase, it wasn't just manipulation. It was certainty.
He wasn't guessing. He knew. I turned to Ethan slowly. He said something strange about the baby, about her not being Claire's. Ethan's grip on the wheel tightened. He's lying. I leaned closer, voice low. Is he? He didn't answer. My stomach dropped. Ethan. His silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. The headlights carved the road ahead, bright and merciless, as my mind pieced together what had been hidden between every word, every glance, every too careful pause. Claire's confusion, her late-night fights with Daniel, her sudden breakdown, the whispered arguments I'd overheard but never understood. And Ethan, always nearby, always offering comfort, always deflecting blame. The truth hit me like ice water. You knew, I said softly. You knew the baby wasn't his. Ethan's knuckles whitened. Margaret, please, don't. Oh my God, my voice trembled. It's yours, isn't it? He didn't deny it. He didn't even look at me. The car swerved slightly, the tires catching gravel. I felt the air leave my lungs. You supposed to protect her, I whispered. She was your wife's sister, Ethan, and you... I didn't mean for it to happen, he said hoarsely. Claire came to me when things with Daniel got bad. I thought I could help her. It wasn't supposed to go that far. She was lonely, scared, and you took advantage of that, I said bitterly. Just like your brother. No, I loved her, Margaret. I swear I did. But when she found out she was pregnant, she panicked. She said Daniel couldn't know. She said it would destroy him. So she lied. And when the truth started coming apart, his voice cracked, she couldn't live with it. The baby stirred again, whimpering softly, as if she felt the weight of the words in the air. I stared out the windshield, the reflection of my own face ghosted against the glass. Everything I thought I knew was crumbling, piece by piece. My daughter's death, Daniel's cruelty, Ethan's betrayal, it was all one tangled, poisonous vine. Behind us, the darkness of the valley deepened, and somewhere in the distance, another set of headlights appeared, small, far away, but gaining ground. Daniel was coming. The glare of those headlights behind us sliced through the blackness like the eyes of a predator that had finally caught the scent of its prey. Ethan's hands tightened on the steering wheel until his knuckles blanched, and his breath came in short, shallow bursts. The car jolted slightly as we hit a bend, tires spitting gravel into the night. He's following us, I whispered, though the statement was already obvious. Ethan glanced in the mirror. He won't stop. Not until... He cut himself off, jaw clenching. Not until what? I demanded. Not until he kills me or takes her? He didn't answer. The baby started to cry again, thin, terrified wails that pierced through the roar of the engine. My heart twisted at the sound. I reached back, shushing softly, but she felt the tension in the air. She knew something was wrong.
Faster, I urged. Ethan pressed down harder on the accelerator. The car surged forward, the trees blurring into black streaks. The road ahead wound like a ribbon around the cliffs. No guardrails, no lights, just raw darkness. One wrong move, and we'd tumble straight into the valley below. The baby's cries grew louder, echoing in the small space, until they drowned out even my thoughts. I turned toward Ethan. He's not going to let us go, you know that. I know, he said grimly, but I can lose him. I could see the flicker of madness in his eyes, the kind that comes when guilt and desperation twist together into something reckless. The same look Claire used to describe when she talked about him after their arguments, the same look that scared her. Don't you dare risk that baby's life, I said, voice shaking with anger. He glanced at me, pain flashing across his face. You think I'd hurt her? She's all I have left of Claire. No, I said coldly. She's all Claire had left of herself.
You don't get to claim that." He swallowed hard, eyes flicking to the mirror again. The headlights behind us were closer now, too close. Daniel's car had caught the curve of the road, following our every turn. The silence stretched tight, snapping only when Daniel's engine roared louder. He was accelerating. He wasn't afraid of the cliffs or the darkness. He was hunting. "Hold on," he muttered, twisting the wheel. The car veered sharply down a side path, the tires skidding across wet dirt. Branches whipped against the windows as we plunged into the narrow forest road, headlights bouncing wildly over the uneven ground. The smell of pine and rain filled the car. Behind us, Daniel's lights disappeared around a bend, then reappeared a heartbeat later. He'd followed. My pulse thudded in my ears. "Ethan, this road leads to the quarry." "Exactly," he said. "He won't risk following us in there. Too dangerous. Or maybe he's counting on you to crash." He didn't respond, just gritted his teeth and drove faster. The trees thinned as we neared the quarry's edge, the faint shimmer of stagnant water visible below in the moonlight. The road curved sharply to the right, but Ethan didn't slow. "Ethan!" I screamed. He yanked the wheel at the last second and the car fishtailed, spinning in a cloud of dust. The baby's cries turned into terrified screams. I threw my arms protectively around her, my heart clawing at my ribs. When the tires finally bit into the ground again, we were skidding to a stop at the quarry's edge, the headlights pointing into a dark, yawning pit. The engine hissed, steam rising. For a second, none of us spoke. Only the distant sound of Daniel's car, the crunch of tires approaching, broke the silence. Ethan slammed the car into reverse, trying to turn us around, but before the tires could grip, Daniel's headlights burst through the trees behind us. His car screeched to a halt, blocking the only way out. We were trapped. Daniel stepped out slowly, his face illuminated by the harsh glow of his headlights. His expression was calm, too calm. He adjusted his cuffs, then looked straight at me through the windshield, smiling faintly. "Get down," he hissed. He reached under his seat and to my horror pulled out a gun. "Where did you—" "Doesn't matter," he said sharply. "Stay low." Daniel raised his hands in mock surrender, his voice carrying easily over the wind. "You won't shoot me, Ethan. You've never had the stomach for it." "Back away," Ethan shouted, pointing the gun through the open window. Daniel took another step forward, unafraid. "Do you really think killing me will fix what you've done? You think Margaret won't find out the rest?" I froze. "The rest?" I echoed. Daniel's gaze slid to me, his smile widening. "Oh, he didn't tell you everything, did he? About how Claire found out the truth and what he did afterwards?"
Ethan's face drained of color. "Don't listen to him," he muttered. But Daniel didn't stop. He took another step forward, voice smooth and deliberate. "Claire wasn't the only one who found out. She told someone else, your friend at the hospital, Margaret. And when she threatened to go to the police, Ethan paid her a visit." I turned to Ethan, my stomach dropping. What is he talking about? Ethan's eyes darted toward me, wide and desperate. "He's lying." "Am I?" Daniel asked softly. "Ask him where he was the night before Claire died. Ask him why his fingerprints were found on her phone." The words sliced through me like a blade. I stared at Ethan. "You were with her that night?" He opened his mouth, but no sound came. Daniel stepped closer still, his shadow stretching long across the ground. "She confronted him, said she was going to tell me everything. He begged her not to, told her he'd lose everything. But Claire was never good at silence, was she? So he pushed, just once. A shove. An accident, he said." Ethan shook his head violently, eyes filling with tears. "No, that's not how it happened, Margaret. I swear to God, she fell." But the words barely registered. The world tilted. Every image of my daughter, the bruises I'd dismissed, the fear she couldn't voice, the night she died, came flooding back with brutal clarity. The baby whimpered softly, and that sound snapped me out of my daze. I turned to Ethan, my voice low and trembling. "You killed her." "No," he whispered. "No, I didn't mean to." Daniel's smile turned cruel. "He's been protecting himself,"
Not you. Not the baby. That's why he helped me. That's why he wanted her hidden. Because if anyone ever tested her DNA... I looked down at the baby, her dark curls, her tiny hand clutching the edge of the blanket, and I understood. The child wasn't Daniel's, but she wasn't Ethan's either. She was Claire's, and someone else's. Someone Daniel didn't want discovered. The realization hit so suddenly I almost dropped her. I looked back at him, seeing the satisfaction in his eyes, the calm of a man who knew he'd just set fire to everything left standing. Ethan raised the gun again, hands trembling. "You shut your mouth." Daniel didn't even flinch. "You're too late," he said softly. "She knows." The night erupted into chaos. The crack of a gunshot, the screech of tires, the baby scream splitting the air as light and sound collided into madness. The car jolted, and I ducked instinctively, shielding the child as glass shattered around us. When the echo faded, smoke hung in the air, and Daniel's silhouette was no longer standing still. He was moving toward us, slow, certain. And this time there was no one left to believe the lies. The smoke curled upward, thin and ghostly in the moonlight. I blinked through the haze, every nerve in my body trembling, my heartbeat a thunderous roar in my ears. The baby was wailing, her small voice raw with terror. My arms instinctively tightened around her, as if sheer willpower could shield her from the chaos around us. Ethan was slumped against the steering wheel, motionless. Blood traced a slow path down his temple, glinting darkly under the dashboard light. The gun lay on the floor by his feet, still warm, one bullet spent. I didn't know if it had hit Daniel or missed him entirely. Outside, the air felt thick, charged. I could hear the crunch of boots on gravel, the measured, deliberate pace of a man who knew time itself was on his side. Daniel's voice broke the silence, soft and cruel, like silk sliding across a blade. "You were always dramatic, Margaret," he said, stepping closer to the car. "You should have left this alone. Claire's gone. The truth doesn't matter now." I looked up at him through the shattered windshield, my reflection fractured across the glass. I whispered, "The truth always matters." He tilted his head, amused. "And what truth is that? That I was unfaithful? That Ethan was weak? That your daughter was broken long before I met her? What good does it do dragging the dead into the light?" His words slithered into the air, venomous, but I saw it, the faint twitch of his jaw, the flicker in his eyes. For the first time, he wasn't in control. "You killed her," I said quietly, the realization bleeding from my voice like a confession. "You killed her not with your hands, with your lies, your manipulation. You made her question herself until she didn't know what was real. And when she found something good, something that wasn't about you, you destroyed that too."
Daniel's smile faded. "You think you know what happened?" "I know what happened," I snapped, "and I know what you're afraid of. That little girl in my arms, she's proof that you're not who you pretend to be. She's not yours. She's not Ethan's. She's the child of the man Claire loved before you turned her life into a cage. And you couldn't stand that, could you? You couldn't bear the idea that she escaped you, even for a moment." His composure cracked. For the first time since that night began, he looked human, fragile, cornered. His mouth opened, but no words came. Behind me, Ethan groaned faintly, the sound wet and weak. His eyes fluttered open, confusion clouding them. "Margaret, the baby, safe?" I nodded, though I wasn't sure either of us believed it yet. Daniel moved closer, his voice rising, desperate now. "Give her to me. If you love that child, you'll hand her over. You don't understand what she represents. They'll destroy her when they find out who her real father is." I narrowed my eyes. "And who is that, Daniel? Who are you so afraid of?" He hesitated, and that pause told me everything. His power wasn't in the truth, It was in the fear of it. The wind picked up, cold and sharp, carrying the faint echo of sirens in the distance. Ethan must have managed to send some signal before the chase, maybe a desperate text, maybe a GPS ping. Either way, help was coming, but not fast enough. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the sound, and I saw his decision form like lightning. He lunged toward the car, arm outstretched. Instinct took over. I grabbed the revolver from the floor, raised it with both hands, and fired. The recoil jolted through my arms, the noise deafening. Daniel staggered backward, shock etched across his face. He looked down at his chest, at the spreading red stain, then back up at me, disbelief turning to a strange, bitter smile. "You think this changes anything?" he gasped. "The truth dies with me." "No," I said firmly, lowering the gun. "The truth lives with her." He stumbled once, twice, then collapsed to the ground beside the car, the gravel darkening beneath him. For a long time, there was only the baby's soft crying and the distant wail of approaching sirens. I sat there shaking, the gun still in my hands, the cold air biting at my skin. My breath came in ragged bursts. For the first time in months, maybe years, the weight in my chest began to loosen. The truth hadn't saved Claire, but it could save her daughter. Ethan coughed weakly, his voice barely a whisper. "Tell her I'm sorry." I turned to him, tears filling my eyes. "Rest, Ethan. Just rest." His head tilted slightly, a faint, broken smile on his lips, and then he was still. When the police lights finally washed over the quarry in flashes of red and blue, I didn't fight them. I didn't run. I simply stepped out, the baby in my arms, her tiny hand gripping my coat as if she already knew I was all she had left. They asked questions, so many questions, about the chase, the gun, the deaths, but their voices sounded distant, unimportant. I answered what I could, but my eyes never left the baby's face. Her breathing had steadied. She was calm now, safe. Weeks passed before the whole story unraveled. The DNA test confirmed what I'd suspected. The baby was Claire's and another man's, a journalist she'd met while working at the local charity. A kind man, long gone from the country, unaware of what his love had set in motion. Daniel's empire of deception began to crumble as investigators dug deeper, uncovering the years of financial fraud and coercion he'd buried under layers of charm. His name became synonymous with ruin. As for Ethan, his death was ruled an accident in the struggle, but I knew the truth was more complex than any police report could capture. He'd been a weak man who let guilt rot him from the inside until there was nothing left but remorse. Sometimes, late at night, I'd stand by the nursery window and watch the wind move through the trees. The baby, my granddaughter, would sleep peacefully, her breath steady, her hands curled into little fists of defiance. She didn't know the chaos she was born into. One day, she would. And when that day came, I'd tell her everything. About her mother, about the lies, about the courage it takes to face the monsters who hide behind love. Because truth, I'd learned, isn't a weapon you aim at others. It's a light you choose to carry, even when it burns. And in that light, for the first time since losing Claire, I could finally see the path ahead. Not clean or simple, but real, alive. The baby stirred, her lips forming a small sound, almost like a sigh. I smiled, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "You're free now, and so am I."
Outside, the dawn began to rise over the horizon, soft and pale, washing away the remnants of the night's terror. And though the ghosts of the past still lingered at the edge of my mind, they no longer had power over me. For in my arms, life had triumphed over ruin, and for the first time in years,
I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, love could still win, even after everything had been broken.